Okay, this is lesson 63, solving systems of equations by substitution. The last one was solving by graphing, and then another way is by elimination. So there's more than one way to solve these things. But this one here, these are two linear equations, and you can see this one set up, y equals 6 times x minus 11. It's set up as a linear equation. This one isn't. So the first thing you got to do is make sure out of the two equations, one of them is set up with y equals x, or the something times x plus or minus a number. Okay, so this one, actually the first 6 here on this worksheet have one of the equations set up that way. And then the next video will show you if you don't have one set up, well then you have to, start at number 7, it's not, one of them is not set up with the y on one side, so the next video will show that. Okay? But here, you can see y equals 6x minus 11. This is what the y equals. So we can actually take this y and substitute that in, and then figure out what x is. Because if we put this in, the 6x minus 11 times the negative 3, that will give us all x's, and then we can figure out the x. So that's the first step. The first step is to see if one of your equations is set up with the y on one side. It's isolated and set up like a linear equation. So the next step then is substituting that y into the other equation. So here I can say negative 2x minus 3 times, so y is now going to be 6x minus 11 equals negative 7. Okay, now we're back to lesson 59. We're trying to solve that x. That's why 59 has a lot of examples, because you run into these quite a bit in algebra. So here, the first thing I got to do is that distributive property to find the x. So I got negative 2x minus 3 times 6 is negative 3 times 6 is 18, negative 18x. Negative 3 times negative 11 is going to be a positive 33 equals negative 7. Okay, then the next step, is like those multi-step problems again, is to combine your like terms. So negative 2x and negative 18x is negative 20x. Whoops. I'm using a pencil this time because sometimes I make mistakes. I gotta go back and erase it. Okay. Then the next, I got to isolate the x, so I want to get this negative 33 to the other side. So I'm going to go negative 33, positive 33 minus 33 is 0, so that leaves me negative 20x equals minus 33, that leaves me negative 40. So then the last step here is negative 20 times something has to equal negative 40. Well, some people, that's going to be 2. But again, I like to say the opposite of multiplying is dividing. So x equals negative 40 divided by negative 20 is 2. So the x is going to be 2. So what is the y? Well, we know the lines are going to cross at x2. So the y, we can now that we know what the x is, we can put the x in 2 in for the x and figure out the y. So therefore I can go y equals 6 times 2 now, rather than x minus 11. So 6 times 2 is 12, so y equals 12 minus 11, so y equals 1. Okay? So the answer to this one is, if we graph these two lines, they're going to cross at x will be 2 and y will be 1. That's where the two lines would cross. So that would be the answer right here. X is 2, y is 1. let's try this one. We have, this one's already set up. We have 2x minus 3y equals negative 1. And here they have it set up where the y is all on one side. Okay, so therefore, let me move it over. So here I can substitute this in, x minus 1 in for the y up here. So I can go 2, this is nice, I got some extra room here. 2x minus 3, and now I can substitute in this, y equals x minus 1. So x minus 1 equals negative 1. So now I'm back to lesson 59 again. I got to go 2x and distribute the negative 3 times x is negative 3x. And to distribute negative 3 to negative 1, negative 3 times negative 1 is a positive 3. Don't add them. I almost did that. I almost said positive 4 equals negative 1. Then I can add my like terms. Negative x minus 3x gives me a negative x. X plus 3 equals negative 1. Next step is isolate out the 3 to the other side. So that gives me minus 3 minus 3. So that gives me negative x equals negative 4. And now I want to get rid of this negative. So if I go negative 1 divided by negative 1 becomes a positive. And I can make this a positive. Okay? So yeah, if I make this a positive, then I got to do the same thing to the other side. So this is the answer right here. X equals 4. But now what would be the y? Well, now I can take that negative 4 and put it into here, substitute it in, and figure out what the y is. So y equals 4 minus 1. Well, the y equals 3. So the answer would be, if I graph these two lines, if I did these and I did it the long way like in number 62, and graphed them, they would cross at 4. The x would be 4 and the y would be 3. That would be the point where they would cross. Okay? So that would be the answer. So that's how you do these, 1 through 6. Because they all give you, one of them will have the y equals. So you take that and substitute it into the other one, and then you can figure out what the x is, and then you use that to figure out the y. Okay? Let me walk through one more, and at the end I have all these worked out too, so you can see how I did them. And that way you can compare them to yours. But let me do one more here. This one I got more room, so I'll do number 4. Okay, a little bit more room on the paper. So here, the y is already isolated, so I'm going to put this in for the y. I'm going to substitute it in. Okay, so I got negative 3x minus 3, and now the y is negative 5x minus 17 equals 3. Did I do a cheat sheet yet? Nope, let's see how I do here. Okay, so negative 3x, I got to distribute negative and negative is a positive 15x, and negative 3 and negative 17. Let's see, 3 times 17 is 51. So that would be a positive 51 equals 3. Okay. Then I can add the like terms, so negative 3x and positive 15, that will give me positive 12x plus 51 equals 3. Now I want to isolate the x, so that will be 12x minus 51 plus 51, that will be 0. So minus 51 over here, so I got 12x equals negative 48. Yeah, negative 48. 12 times something equals negative 48. Well, most people see that's going to be 4. If I do this, opposite of dividing is multiplying, or opposite of multiplying is dividing. So 12 divided by 12 is 1x, or just x. Negative 48 divided by 12, ooh, that would be a negative 4. So I would have messed that up. So this will be the x. Okay, and then now we could take that and plug it into this one and figure out what the y is. So the y equals negative 5 times negative 4 equals negative 17. So y equals negative 5 times negative 4 is a positive 20 minus 17. So y will equal 3. Got a brain cloud there. Okay, so the answer would be, if I graph these two lines on the graph and the two lines cross, they would cross at x would be negative 4 and the y would be at 3. Okay, so that would be the answer there. Okay, and then the last video I'll show you how I worked out the rest of them. All right.